My life has always been pretty straightforward. I'm a man who believes in loyalty, honesty, and the power of forgiveness when it's truly deserved. But tonight, everything I stood for felt meaningless. I'd become a man I didn't recognize. Lies, betrayal, and revenge replaced the ideals I once clung to. It was strange, almost freeing. I was parked outside the Broken Oar, a rundown bar nestled in the heart of Westfield, Indiana. I had no clue why it was named that, just some old tradition, I guess, something from back when people still believed in the charm of small-town life. I knew one thing, though: Daniel would be inside. He always stopped there after work for a drink. I've known Daniel since we were kids. Best friends, we called ourselves. No one could get between us, not even our wives. I supported him when he married Claire, and he did the same when I married Emily. We'd been in each other's lives for as long as I could remember, and for the most part, nothing changed even when we got married. His house felt like my second home. Mine felt like his. We were brothers, in every way that mattered. But betrayal changes everything. And today had changed me. It wasn't even 5 hours ago that I walked in on them. I came home during my lunch break to grab a few things, a couple of reports. Everything seemed fine. As I walked through the front door, I heard voices, then laughter. The kind of laugh that made my stomach twist, the one you hear when you know everything you thought you knew is about to crumble. The moment I heard her voice, I knew. It wasn't just laughter, it was something else, something far more intimate. The noises became clearer. I froze at the bedroom door. I didn't want to believe it, but there it was. I didn't know how long they'd been at it, but it didn't matter. It was my wife. It was Daniel. And they were together. I didn't wait to see more. I didn't want to witness the destruction that came with betrayal. I turned around and left, walking out through the front door like nothing had happened. But it had. Everything had changed in that moment. And I was no longer the same man. I didn't even grab the reports. It wasn't worth it. Hours later, I sat at my desk at work, unable to focus. My mind raced through the chaos I had just witnessed. The questions were endless. How could they? How long? Was it just him, or were there others? How could I have been so blind for so long? I thought about walking away, getting in my car and driving far away, never looking back. But then the rage hit. I'd divorce Emily, take the house, take everything. Leave her with nothing. But I couldn't shake the thought of my kids. As much as I wanted to hurt her, I knew I couldn't take them away from their mother. So, I decided. I would take my revenge on both of them, but I'd do it in my own way. And it would be methodical. I would weave a web of lies, just like they had. On the drive to the Broken Oar, I couldn't stop asking myself, how could they betray me like this? Had I changed? Had Daniel changed? The more I thought about it, the more questions piled up, and the more I realized there were no answers. The only people who could answer me were too busy covering their tracks to be trusted. I walked into the Broken Oar, the smell of stale beer and fried food filling my senses. The dim lights cast long shadows across the worn-out booths. I could already see him sitting at the far end of the bar. Daniel. He always sat in that corner. It was like his little hideaway, where he could be alone with his thoughts after a long day at work. But tonight, he wasn't alone. I almost didn't want to go up to him, to face what had happened. But I knew I had to. I took a deep breath before walking toward him. His back was to me, and for a moment, I stood there, staring at the back of his head. I wanted to believe that the man sitting there was still my best friend, the one who had my back no matter what. But now, all I saw was a stranger. He turned as I approached, his face lighting up when he saw me. His usual smile was there, the one that had always made me feel like everything would be all right. But tonight, that smile felt hollow. It wasn't the same. Nothing was the same. Adam, Daniel said, his voice low. Didn't expect to see you here. Everything okay? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I sat down next to him, throwing my jacket over the back of the bar stool. Everything's fine, I muttered, my voice colder than I intended. Just wanted to talk. He gave me a quizzical look, but didn't push. He turned back to his drink, swirling the whiskey around in his glass as if he were waiting for me to speak. I could feel the tension building between us, the air thick with all the unsaid words that were hanging there, just waiting to be acknowledged. But I couldn't bring myself to say it out loud. I wanted to hit him, to yell at him, but I knew I couldn't. Not yet. I kept my gaze on his hand as he lifted his glass to his lips, the same hand that had touched my wife just hours ago. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms. You know, I never thought I'd see the day when you'd betray me like this. His face went pale at the words, and for a split second, I saw a flicker of guilt. But then it was gone, replaced by a cold, calculated look that made my blood run cold. "What are you talking about, Adam?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not betraying you. You're really going to sit there and lie to my face?" I snapped, my voice louder than I meant. Several people in the bar turned to look, but I didn't care. "I saw you, Daniel. I saw you with Emily. Don't pretend you didn't know what you were doing." The silence that followed was suffocating. Daniel didn't speak. He didn't need to. I could see it in his eyes. The guilt. The regret. But it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this," Daniel finally muttered, his voice barely audible. I let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, so now you regret it? After everything? After you've destroyed my family, you're just going to say that?" "I didn't want to hurt you," he said, his voice cracking. "Well, congratulations. You've done it," I replied, my voice thick with venom. "You've destroyed everything." I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I'll deal with this. But you need to know something, Daniel. This isn't over. I'm not going to just walk away from this. You'll pay for what you did. And so will she." I walked out of the bar, leaving him there, speechless and broken. As I stepped outside into the cold night air, the weight of what had just happened started to settle in. It felt surreal, like I was living in someone else's life. How had I let things get this far? How had I let them both betray me like this? I took a deep breath, the cold air stinging my lungs. I had to keep my composure. I couldn't let my emotions get the best of me. Not now. Not yet. There was still so much I needed to do. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't focus on anything, work, home, nothing. All I could think about was that moment in the broken oar. The look on Daniel's face when I confronted him, the guilt in his eyes, the helplessness. It didn't change anything. I still couldn't bring myself to trust him anymore. Emily kept calling me, texting me, trying to reach out, but I ignored her. I didn't want to hear her explanations or excuses. What could she possibly say that would make any of this better? I was done. And yet, a part of me still missed her. I missed the way we used to be before everything fell apart. I missed the woman I thought I knew. But the hardest part wasn't Emily. It wasn't even the betrayal. It was Daniel. My best friend. My brother in all but blood. The guy who had been there for me through thick and thin, who had seen me through my darkest times. And now, he was the one who had hurt me the most. I needed answers. I couldn't let it go without understanding why. Why had he done it? Why her? I knew Emily wasn't innocent in this mess, but I couldn't get past the fact that Daniel had crossed a line. He had always been a little too close to her, but I never thought he'd betray me like this. The next time I saw him, it wasn't in the bar. It was outside of my apartment, standing there with his hands shoved deep in his pockets, looking like he didn't know where to start. He didn't make eye contact at first. When he finally did, it was like he had aged 10 years in the span of a few days. "Adam," he said, his voice sounding strained. "We need to talk." I took a step back, my arms crossed. "Talk? About what, Daniel? You already said your piece in the bar. You already told me how sorry you are, and I don't need to hear it again. I'm not asking for forgiveness," he said, his voice softer now. I need you to understand. I didn't mean for this to happen." "Then what did you mean, her?" I shot back. "What did you think would happen when we crossed that line?" He looked down, his jaw clenched tight. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. I didn't go into it thinking I'd hurt you. But one thing led to another, and then it was too late. I couldn't stop. You didn't think about stopping? I asked, my voice rising with anger. You didn't think about the consequences of your actions? Of course I did, he snapped, his voice cracking. But by then, it was already too late. And I couldn't undo it. I know I messed up, Adam. I know I hurt you. But I never wanted this. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. So, what? Now you want me to just forgive you? To forget that you slept with my wife? Just because you're sorry? I don't expect forgiveness, he said. I'm just asking for a chance. A chance to make things right. You can't make things right, Daniel, I said quietly, my voice cutting through the air like a knife. You can't undo what's been done. You can't erase the past. There was a long silence between us, a tension I couldn't escape. It was as if both of us were waiting for something, some miracle, some sign that things could go back to how they were. But I knew that wouldn't happen. There was no going back. I don't know if I can ever forgive you, I said after a long pause. But that doesn't mean we're done. Not yet. Daniel nodded slowly, understanding the weight of my words. I don't expect you to forgive me, Adam. But I'm not giving up on this. On us. I'm still your friend, no matter what happens. I wanted to shout, to throw something at him. But I didn't. I just stood there, my fists clenched tight, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. For the first time in days, I felt something close to clarity. It wasn't forgiveness I was searching for, not yet. But maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for something else. Something new. A new beginning, even if it wasn't with Emily, even if it wasn't with Daniel. The days that followed felt like a strange sort of limbo. I was caught between trying to process everything and still finding myself drawn to the remnants of my old life. Daniel and I didn't talk much after that encounter outside my apartment. He would send the occasional text, but I couldn't bring myself to reply. Every message from him felt like a reminder of the betrayal. Emily, on the other hand, was relentless. She called every day, leaving voicemails, sending texts, even showing up at my door at odd hours. She told me she was sorry, so sorry. But I couldn't bring myself to listen to her anymore. Every word from her felt like another lie. Maybe it wasn't fair, but the trust was gone. And once it was gone, it was like trying to hold water in your hands. Then one night, Daniel showed up at the Broken Oar again. I had been sitting at the bar, nursing a drink, trying to clear my head. I didn't want to be there, but I didn't want to go home either. The atmosphere of the bar, the noise, the people, at least it kept me distracted. It kept me from thinking about everything that had happened. But when the door opened and I saw Daniel walking in, I felt a knot tighten in my chest. I didn't want to face him, not here, not like this. But he saw me, and there was no escaping it. He walked toward me slowly, as if unsure of whether he should sit or not. "You've been avoiding me," he said as he slid into the chair across from mine. His voice was calmer than I expected, but I could see the tension in his eyes. "I don't know what you want from me, Daniel," I replied, taking a sip of my drink to avoid looking at him directly. "I don't know what you think is going to happen." "I'm not here to beg for forgiveness," he said, shaking his head. "I'm here because I know I messed up, and I need to make sure you understand that." "I get it," I said bitterly. "You messed up. But that's not enough. It doesn't fix anything." "I know," Daniel said quietly. "But I can't just walk away from this. I've been friends with you for too long. I never thought I'd be the one to do this to you." I didn't respond right away. The words hung in the air between us, thick and uncomfortable. It felt like we were both just waiting for the other to make a move, to say something that would either tear us apart or build a bridge between us. But nothing felt right anymore. The person I had been before all this, the person who trusted him without question, was gone. "You don't get it, Daniel," I said finally, my voice hoarse. "It's not about whether you're sorry or not. It's about what you did. You took something from me. You took her. And I can't just forget that." He nodded slowly. "I understand. I do. And I'm not asking you to forgive me. But I want you to know that I'm here. And I'm not going anywhere. If there's a chance for us to fix this, even a small one, I want to take it. I stood up, pushing my chair back with a scrape. I don't know if there's anything left to fix, Daniel. I don't know if there ever will be. Maybe we should just accept that. And with that, I walked out of the broken oar. Days turned into weeks, and I tried to rebuild my life, but nothing felt the same. The friends I once had, the routine I had clung to, all of it was gone. Even the quiet mornings I used to cherish seemed unbearable now. I tried to avoid Daniel, tried to avoid the reminders of everything that had happened. But life doesn't stop, and neither did the universe. One evening, I received a message from Emily. It was simple, almost too simple. She was in town for a work conference and wanted to talk. I had no interest in seeing her, no interest in hearing what she had to say. But something in me couldn't resist. Maybe I just needed closure. Maybe I was still holding on to the idea of what we had. Either way, I agreed to meet her. We met at a cafe called Morningside Brew, a small, cozy spot that used to be our place. Emily had changed. Her hair was shorter, and she seemed more tired. Her eyes were the same, though still full of guilt, full of regret. I know you don't want to see me, she started, but I need you to understand that I never meant for any of this to happen. I've heard it before, I said, trying to keep my emotions in check. It doesn't matter anymore. What matters is what you did, and how you hurt me. You don't just get to come back and fix it with a few words. I know, she whispered, her voice trembling. But I still love you. And I miss what we had. I was selfish. I've been selfish. I couldn't look at her anymore. You don't get to say that now. You lost that right when you chose him over me. When you decided to betray everything we had. Her face crumpled, but I didn't feel sympathy. I couldn't. The wound was too deep. She had shattered the trust between us, and it was gone forever. It wasn't something that could just be pieced back together with an apology. I understand if you never want to see me again, Emily said softly, standing up from the table. I just needed to say it. I needed to tell you that I'm sorry, and that I'll always care about you. I didn't answer. I just watched her leave the cafe, walking away from me, leaving behind all the promises she had once made. Later that evening, I received another message, this time from Daniel. It was brief. Can we talk? I sat in silence for a long time, staring at the screen. Every part of me wanted to ignore it, to keep pretending like nothing had happened. But part of me, maybe the smallest part, still cared about him. Maybe we could still salvage something. Maybe we could rebuild what had been destroyed. I walked to the broken oar once again, unsure of what I would say to him. When I arrived, I found him sitting at the same table where we had talked weeks ago. His expression was unreadable, but there was a sadness in his eyes that mirrored my own. Do you want to hear the truth? Daniel asked as soon as I sat down. I'm listening, I said quietly. I don't know if we can fix this, he began, his voice rough. I don't know if we'll ever be the same again. But I want to try. I know I messed up, and I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I just want you to know that I'm not the person I was when I made that decision. I studied him for a long time, feeling the weight of everything that had happened between us. I don't know if I can trust you again, Daniel. I don't know if I'll ever be able to. But I'm willing to try. There was a pause before he nodded, a small, resigned smile on his face. That's all I can ask for. And in that moment, I realized that while things might never go back to what they were, there was still a chance to move forward, together or apart. The future was uncertain, but maybe, just maybe, we could both find our way back to something real.